Barrow Like, one of BuzzFeed's content verticals that is centered around providing representation for different Latinx communities. Really popping off during the identity skits meta of YouTube and Facebook, the content involved relatable sketches, trying food, comparing languages, and more. The videos were packaged in a way that made it straightforward, short, and shareable, much like the other popular BuzzFeed content at the time. But like all of the other BuzzFeed channels, Barrow Like has also seen a decline in viewership over the years. In this video, we're gonna be going over the start of the channel, the popularity and main stars, controversies, factors that led to the channel's decline, and where the stars are now. If you haven't already seen our other two videos on BuzzFeed Video and BuzzFeed Tasty, I highly recommend checking those out since all of the content there is also related to the overall company and social media context. And with all that said, let's get into it. Barrow Like is a Latinx-focused content vertical under BuzzFeed, launched in 2016. It was essentially a YouTube channel, Facebook page, and brand within BuzzFeed that highlighted Latinx culture, identity, and experiences, primarily targeting bilingual or bicultural people. The name Barrow Like comes from a common Spanglish expression meaning but like, which reflected the mix of English and Spanish that was commonly used in the content. I also want to apologize for my pronunciation in this video. I'm not a Spanish speaker. I already suck at pronouncing words in English, so I do apologize. Since I know my pronunciation is really bad and I don't want to make you guys upset having to hear me say Barrow Like over and over again in this video, I'm gonna refer to it as PL. So the first video on the PL channel was called Is Cheating Ever Okay?, which was a pretty casual Q&A video where some of the starting members just sat together, introduced themselves, and answered questions. The channel really thrived from posting different identity sketches, which some involved different family archetypes, some videos trying different foods, comparing different Spanish accents and different language challenges, and also some general conversational series where they would just talk about different topics, do Q&As, and evolved into even interviewing celebrities. It carved out a space for Latinx stories. A lot of viewers had said that it made them feel seen in the mainstream viral video space. There was some pushback for using the term Latinx and questions around if it was even possible to have one channel represent such a large group of people. We'll get into those criticisms later in this video, but overall the perception of the channel was positive. Even if you didn't identify with the Latinx community, the content was still very enjoyable to watch and a way to learn about other cultures. The PL team also had a very good group dynamic and faces that were also popular on other BuzzFeed channels at the time, so it was also a way to see those people more in a different context. As time went on, the content also varied a bit. It wasn't so on the nose when it came to just directly showcasing the culture. It also kind of became a channel where the PL crew would just do different things like try yoga, ASMR, acrylic nails, or take different quizzes, and sometimes quizzes on each other, and just give their perspectives on a variety of topics coming from their own backgrounds. So a lot of the early content was highly optimized for social sharing on Facebook and YouTube, similar to the strategies to all the other video content verticals that BuzzFeed was pushing at the time. When BuzzFeed was poppin', it was poppin' on all fronts, which was great and all, but unfortunately, it also meant when it also fell on all fronts. Similar to the other BuzzFeed verticals, there are so many people working on these channels in front of the camera and behind the camera, so I need to do my usual disclaimer apology where I'm sorry if I don't mention someone that you are thinking of. Please leave it in the comments if I did and we can help fill each other in. In regards to who really started PL, they actually made a video years later in 2020 where Gadiel interviewed the people who put the channel and brand together. Of course, everyone deserves their flowers, but out of these people, the main public-facing contributor was Jenny. Jenny was known for her abuela character sketches, showcasing what I describe as a grandma's straight up blunt energy. She's gonna say her opinion even if it hurts your feelings, but obviously she still loves and cares for her family a ton. It's cool because in a lot of the comments under the video, people will say, hey, I'm not even Hispanic and I relate to this and I love this content. Jenny was also in a ton of early PL videos, not just sketches, which makes sense because she literally was a part of starting the channel. So she's pretty much in anything and everything. She also had a series where she explained the meanings and context behind different Spanglish words. Jasmine is also one of the people credited with starting the channel and was also on camera in a lot of early content, usually more of the Q&A type videos, but she does end up leaving BuzzFeed pretty early at the start of PL, so she isn't there for too long. Jessica also wasn't there too long, but did make a big impact during her time. I believe she was a video resident at BuzzFeed at the time. She was there to support the start of the channel, but left after just a few months in. Although it was only a few months, she was in a ton of videos like the conversational ones, sketches, challenges, transformational videos, trying on an old quinceañera dress, really helping shape the early voice of the brand. Claudia was also there from the very first Q&As. She would do quiz videos, narrative-focused videos, and more. A common theme with the stars of PL, I feel like, is that they weren't really known for having specific series where they individually shined. It was always giving a lot of collaboration. Not everything was a reoccurring format. There would be a lot of one-off videos. The thing that held up the same were the people in it. You could also tell that some people enjoyed doing the skits and the sketches, while other people were more into the talking videos and videos involving challenges or doing activities. Curly was also there from the first video, and he was pretty known already at this point from his appearances on the BuzzFeed video channel. At least that's how I remember it. And he really did it all. Like, he did explaining videos where he talked about different aspects of his culture. He did challenge videos. He did skits, behind the scenes videos, talking videos, just everything. He's probably one of the most recognizable faces when it comes to PL. He had a very open, funny personality and always came off as very genuine. He also ends up being very close to fellow PL star Maya, with them co-starring in multiple videos together and referring to each other as besties. More on that later. Maya had a very relatable, quirky humor and a very bright personality. She did a lot of transformation videos on the channel involving getting styled by other people like her mom and other BuzzFeed stars like Jazz and Lindsay. She also really leaned into the fact that her Spanish was not the best, doing videos connecting with other people in a similar boat as her, and even doing challenges to improve her Spanish, like speaking only Spanish for a day, and I tried to learn Spanish in 60 days. I really enjoyed these videos since, again, even as someone who isn't Hispanic, I can still relate to not knowing a language that I feel like I should know and that is tied to my culture and all of the feelings around it. She also got very vulnerable on the channel with a video about opening herself up to love and seeing a therapist. Yadiel was also a super prominent figure of PL, very high energy, a big sense of humor, and he brought the right vibes in all the collaboration videos on the channel. He was super good at improvising and giving funny reactions, whether it came from trying new foods or having mini debates or conversations with other people. Basically, he really knew how to banter. He had a strong bond with fellow star Julissa since they carried the Dominican representation on the channel together. They had a lot of collaboration videos together, like Latinos Try ASMR, Dominicans Tried the Only Dominican Restaurant in California, and the Ultimate Food Tour in the Dominican Republic. Like, if Maya and Curly were seen as a duo, then Gadiel and Julissa were also seen as a duo. The energy that Gadiel and Julissa give off is just so electric. They're often dancing around and very expressive and just make you smile. Julissa was a huge contributor as well on her own, just generally a strong and bright personality in the content, and was really big on shaping the brand's vibe and image. I remember when she left the channel, they actually did a goodbye video for her that Gadiel hosted, and it was really wholesome, just given all of the context of them working together for so long and her individual impact. I think that also goes to show how important the people on PL were, because they would literally have goodbye videos for them. Eli was also a prominent member, joining a bit later but still having a lasting impression. I believe he was appearing in PL videos for a bit before he ended up officially joining the team, but he was a familiar face throughout. I also remember seeing Eli in other BuzzFeed videos around this era. I think he was mostly known for working behind the camera, but also did some hosting segments and a handful of videos with his dad where they would swap diets or he would get styled by him, and then even reading thirst comments, since there was this ongoing bit around both of his parents being very attractive. In terms of controversies and criticisms around the brand, a big one happened pretty early on. Around mid-2016, BuzzFeed actually fired Jenny for appearing in America Ferrera's Gentified show without getting permission from BuzzFeed. They cited that she went against the non-compete in her work contracts. Fellow BuzzFeed employee Brittany Ashley was also part of this drama and got fired at the same time. You might remember her from her popular appearances on BuzzFeed Video, but this kind of scandal started a larger conversation around what rights do these creators have at these big corporations around their work and around their image and creative freedoms, and just how important were they to these big corporations, since Jenny literally helped start PL and she was let go. The impact of this was actually pretty big because this happened before the influx of the Why I Left BuzzFeed videos, where oftentimes a big reasons that these stars left was because of lack of freedom to work on other projects and have true ownership of their work. Jenny made this post about herself leaving BuzzFeed, saying, "I no longer work for BuzzFeed/PL, but will continue to make content on the Aggressive Comics channel and will always strive to make Latino content. I love you all. Thank you for your support." I don't think Jenny has spoken spoken super publicly on how she felt about being let go, but I assume it was a mix of gaining some freedom while also being sad about leaving behind a project that meant a lot to you and that you took a big role in starting. Personally, I would have been really salty. I don't think Jenny is anymore though. I mean, we'll get into more of what she ended up doing later in this video. Like I mentioned earlier, there was some criticism over PL. Some United States Hispanic media said that the channel's early style relied heavily on broad stereotypes like, oh, every Latino mom says this, which felt oversimplified and very surface level representation. I do think that might have contributed to them making their content less so on the nose about things to avoid trying to put everyone in a bubble and say, oh, we're all like this one thing. There's also been some debate over using the term Latinx with questions around inclusivity, language, generational divides, and cultural authenticity, since the term technically goes against Spanish grammar and phonetics and is said to not really be a term that's widely used by the community it says it represents. One Pew Research poll said that half the population that Latinx is meant to describe have never even heard of the term. 75% of Latinos who have heard the term Latinx say that it is not a term used to describe the Hispanic or Latino population, and only about 4% of Latino adults say that they have used the term Latinx to describe themselves. This was information taken from a poll done last year. If you fall under the group that the term Latinx covers, please let me know what you think about the term in the comments below. When reading some of the criticisms, I related to it a bit with how I feel about Asian American representation in American media as well. I feel like during the 2010s, there was a lot of buzz around being Asian American and the Asian American identity. And while there's totally a ton of stuff that Asian Americans can relate to one another with, we aren't all the same and there are a ton of intricacies. So I definitely think it's valid to also be critical of the type of representation given to groups to make sure that they aren't just reinforcing stereotypes and erasing complexity and subcultures. But it is a really tall task to put on one channel or brand to represent so many different people at once. Some critics say that as time went on, people looked for more authenticity and representation nuance since there are so many cultural subgroups to be covered. BuzzFeed as a corporation was trying to juggle representing multiple backgrounds under this single content vertical, which proved itself to be a tough balancing act. I mean, it must really suck to make a video thinking you're making something relatable to a certain audience and then have that audience tell you that it didn't land or they don't get it. That would just feel awful. And on top of that, as time went on, more and more creators began posting online from their own perspectives, building communities around their specific cultural niches. So basically the landscape changed. If you were looking for a hyper-specific representation, you could probably find an individual creator making content that spoke directly to that. So instead of waiting for a big brand channel like BuzzFeed's PL to attempt broad representation for everyone, audiences increasingly gravitated towards more niche creators who offered more authenticity and direct relatability. Not to say that a mainstream space like PL shouldn't exist or doesn't have room to exist anymore, but just that there's more spaces now than there were before. Like we discussed in our Tasty video, there were also platform changes that affected BuzzFeed as a whole and their investment in video content and their different brand verticals. One of these changes being that in 2018, Facebook decided to change their newsfeed algorithms to favor friends and family posts rather than publisher posts from corporations. That obviously would then affect BuzzFeed's ability to monetize over their videos on newsfeed since traffic would decline. There was also a scandal in 2019 where Facebook had to pay $40 million in settlements over inflated video metrics, which we talked about in our BuzzFeed Tasty video, which then made BuzzFeed pull back investment in all of their video overall. So less investment in video, cut to BuzzFeed layoffs in 2019, and BuzzFeed continued to trim down their staff in 2023. These cuts affect everywhere in the company. PL being a content vertical focused on identity, even though identity is important, the content style and mainstream media changed and it just wasn't something super forefront anymore. This was not a vertical that BuzzFeed was about to all in on and give a ton of resources to given all of the other context. I mean, in our BuzzFeed Tasty video, we all know that Tasty was huge, but even that fell out of favor in BuzzFeed's eyes. Look, I don't know BuzzFeed's financials, I don't claim to know them, but from what I've seen on the PL channel, I can't imagine that it's a huge moneymaker for them. Even from their main channel, BuzzFeed Video, they haven't had a new post in 3 months at the time of me filming this, and when I just checked their channel again, they started privating or deleting a lot of their videos. It's looking a little cooked in the video department, I'll be honest. We also can't ignore the effect that COVID had on the channel. Almost all of the content on the channel was collaborative. It involved many people interacting and socializing with each other and going out in public and trying different activities or food. And you really just cannot do that when the world is shut down. They try to still film from home because that's all they could really do, but it definitely would lower the video quality content. And honestly, who can even blame them? Because not only do you not have the energy from other people being in person, but now everyone is generally not feeling so great because they're navigating the pandemic in real time. And in contrast to other verticals like Tasty, where you could film a video cooking at home and generally have the same vibe as work in person, you can't do that where a channel is based on interactions, banter, and just group energy. And lastly, a tale as old as time in BuzzFeed downfalls, the main cast leaving had an impact. I feel like especially with PL, it started super focused on being this representation for all Latinx communities with the skits and the teaching videos, but eventually it did morph into kind of just following the main cast do different things and interact with each other. Don't get me wrong, that is still representation in and of itself, and there was still a lot of focus on culture and a lot of educational aspects to their content, but the actual people involved became more front and center, and that was what was making the videos good. So once people left, audiences would follow those creators to their other work, which kind of brings up the larger conversation of, is it even possible for these big corporations to run successful channels like these? Since it's kind of inevitable that the stars will leave since everyone's gotta live their life and do what's best for them, does every personality-driven successful channel by a corporation have a shelf life depending on how long their stars stick with them? I think so. So where are these stars now? Since leaving BuzzFeed, Jenny continued creating sketches and doing cultural comedy on her own platforms, continuing with her abuela character. She also expanded into voice acting with her roles in some major animated series like Jellystone on HBO Max, Victor and Valentino on Cartoon Network, and Hamster and Gretel on Disney Channel. She previously co-hosted Disney's What's Up Disney Plus, which was a show covering news and just things going on with Disney Plus, and she seems to still have a good relationship with Disney. I mean, she worked with them by hosting the premiere of the newest Fantastic Four movie. She also co-hosted a podcast called The Hyphenated Podcast, which focused on Latinx identity and bicultural experiences, but the podcast doesn't seem to be active anymore. Jessica still works as a video producer and director. She's a co-founder of Fearless Video, which is a video production company. Her social media is private, but she has a pretty stacked LinkedIn profile if you're really curious to what she's been up to. But I'm not gonna get into everything she's doing right now though. Like, it doesn't seem like she's trying to be a public figure or anything. Similarly, Jasmine is also a video producer, continuing to work. Again, you could look at her LinkedIn profile if you want to, but she's not really in the public eye anymore, so I'm not trying to like air all of that out. Claudia is a writer, director, and actor. She was a part of the Sony TV Writers Program in 2023, which is basically a program that Sony does to help new TV writers from unrepresented backgrounds get their foot in the door. She earned recognition as a daytime Emmy-nominated writer for The Book of Queer on Discovery Plus, and she was also a leading actress in the indie rom-com Peak Season. So she's had on-screen performances as well as behind-the-camera roles. I believe Curly actually stayed with the PL channel the longest out of everyone we're mentioning in this video. After leaving BuzzFeed, he became the host of PBS's Dead and Buried, which has a pretty interesting premise. The show is basically about exploring society's attitudes towards death, including the growing trend towards openness and honesty about end-of-the-life care. Definitely not really what I was expecting. He also co-hosts a podcast with Maya called the Super Secret Bestie Club. So yes, they do seem to still be besties even after leaving BuzzFeed. His LinkedIn also says he's been a content specialist at Meta for a few years now. On the podcast, they have an episode with Gadiel where they talk about PL and leaving BuzzFeed. Maya shared that the team had wanted to do more things, but they couldn't because BuzzFeed just wouldn't let them. Like, they wouldn't let them have a podcast at the time, and at some point they were even in talks to get a TV show that didn't end up happening. Eventually, as people left, there were also some changes on the team that made the energy different, and basically BuzzFeed just completely fumbled because they had a great team where everyone was so talented, they could each edit, act, and everything, and they were stars that were popular, but then they just didn't value it. Since leaving BuzzFeed, Maya has been self-employed. She's a social media content creator, and she also sings and acts. I also noticed that she recently started streaming on Twitch, which I don't know if she's trying to make a more regular thing or is just kind of a random thing for fun. Since I filmed this, Maya also announced that she's starring in a one-woman musical comedy show. She describes it as having comedy, music, heartbreak, internet chaos, and just stories that have shaped her, all shown through song and dance. Also wanted to mention that one of Maya's acting roles was in a film called Kill Me Daddy, which was written and directed by Claudia, so just more connections. Gadiel continued his career becoming a stand-up comedian, public speaker, and entrepreneur. He now tours and headlines comedy clubs, bringing the same energy that he did on BuzzFeed. He's still super active on social media. Aside from performing, he's also branched into some small business ventures like selling cigars. From what I saw online, I think it's the first Dominican cigar manufacturing house in California. And more recently, he started his own podcast on YouTube where he has candid chats with creators, entrepreneurs, and other personalities shaping Latinx pop culture. Julissa continued on with an acting career, getting reoccurring roles on Netflix Gentified and in Amazon's With Love, both shows really hitting home for Latinx and Afro-Latina representation. She's also an entrepreneur, founding the Dream and Manifest Journal, which is a self-care and manifestation journal inspired by her own personal practice and desire to empower others to dream big. She's done many public speaking opportunities, using her platform to speak candidly about her experience as an Afro-Latina and embracing her Dominican roots. And she's talked a lot about navigating representation in Hollywood and staying true to herself. And also, don't get me wrong, Julissa's not the only one to leave and go on to do a lot of advocacy work. Pretty much all of them have continued to bring awareness and use their platform to speak on issues for their community. You can really tell that their work at PL was super authentic to their personalities and that they truly believed in the channel's mission. Eli continued with filmmaking and also moved on to coaching and personal development work. On the film side, he has a horror film called Bodies Will Tumble and Roll. He produced some other short films as well, but it kind of seems from his social media that a lot of the content and work now is focused on something else. So he founded this thing called Self-Hype, which is a media and coaching brand focused on helping people do inner work to essentially better themselves. Basically a life coach. He also runs the Self-Hype podcast, which is a no BS podcast with unfiltered discussions on dating, love, personal development, and relationships. It is targeted towards women, which I am a little bit confused about a man giving all this advice to women. To be fair, I've never engaged with any women life dating coaches before, so I have no benchmark to what his content is like and if that's standard or if it's normal for men to also be doing that role. I don't know. I'm curious what you guys think though, because in the few short videos I watched, he is speaking facts. I won't deny that. But personally, I feel like if I was to look for advice on that stuff as a woman, I would want another woman to coach me. From my searching online, I couldn't seem to find any big public controversies involving any of these past members. They seem to all just be continuing their work and doing their thing. PL is still alive today, actively producing and uploading content. While smaller than it was before, it is still maintaining an audience and continuing its mission to highlight Latinx culture. It may not be trending across mainstream media like it once was, but there is still a community around it. There is no news of BuzzFeed ever sunsetting the channel or the brand. I mean, at least not that I know of, but I do wonder in general what BuzzFeed's plans are with their content verticals and how they're choosing to invest their resources after all of this cutting. And with all of that, thank you for making it to the end of the video. If you enjoyed this video and you haven't already seen the other ex-BuzzFeed videos, please make sure to check them out because we've already covered the Try Guys, Ladylike, BuzzFeed Unsolved, Worth It, and Tasty. Please like and subscribe to support the channel, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!